Well, hello and welcome back to Advanced Conversation with Professor Kent Lee. We have talked about logical fallacies, we've talked about pop psychology, we've talked about misunderstandings of science and health news, we've talked about misunderstandings of science and theories and scientific work and academic terms like theories and laws and such. Now we're going to talk about something called cognitive biases, which is again kind of back to psychology, but we're going to talk about it in terms of how it explains why people believe some of these popular misconceptions. So this is part of our popular misconceptions unit, and you should be thinking about which one of these you want to do for your final project. It's just basically going to be a presentation, kind of like the midterm, probably a bit longer. You pick one of these misconceptions, and in the I'll have links later on the class website and information on the class website about topics and requirements for the project. I will probably get around to that soon. And I put links in my, actually in the last video, but I need to revise some of the contents on the website. So today we're going to talk about something called cognitive biases, and you may not know what that is, but we'll walk you through some examples. This has to do with how people process information. And we take in a lot of information every day, and anytime we're talking about things like economics, politics, society, there's a lot of information out there when it comes to how our society works, our government works, how the world works. There's a lot of information. And humans are not always good at handling information, especially large amount of information and the patterns in information. And we have developed shortcuts in our thinking, in our evolution, which these shortcuts help us to process a lot of information, especially sometimes when we need to make quick decisions. But sometimes they don't work, especially in this modern world and the complexities of the modern world. So on page 40 in the book, I'll also put these on the screen. I have some questions for you to think about. And through discussing these, we will find out what cognitive biases are and how some of them work, how some of the important ones work. So please look at these questions, these discussion questions on page 40 in the book. Pause the video and talk to somebody about these questions. Find a classmate, talk to somebody, at least talk to yourself, talk to somebody for a while. What's going on here? Why do we make these kinds of decisions or conclusions sometimes? Talk for a while. Okay, number one, a store is offering a sale and it's a 2+1. So right there, the 2+1, or it's actually a convenient expression. We don't use that kind of phrasing usually in English, but it actually is convenient. In stores in the US, they'll say like buy two, get one free, which is a little wordy. 2+1 is nice. Korean innovation. So that in itself, that 2+1, or buy two, get one free, that induces you to buy something you wouldn't normally buy. Maybe you would just buy one. Maybe you just need one. Maybe three is too much for you, but you buy it anyway, because it appeals to your greed and your desire to have. Kind of you're worried about scarcity. I don't have that, I need that. Even though it's just ice cream, you don't really need it. But you want it because it's cheaper than usual. So it appeals to your greed, your desire, and your fear of scarcity, things being scarce. But then sometimes they add this condition, limit 3 per customer or 3 per purchase. Why do they do that? Why do stores do that? Why do they put a limit? And why does it make sense? Because sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. So if they do, are they worried about running out of stock, running out of ice cream? Probably not. There is a deeper reason. When there's a limit, there's some kind of limit on how much you can buy. It could be 2 plus 1, limit 3 per customer, or it's 10% off, but limit 3 per purchase. Whenever there's a limit, it creates in you a certain, in the back of your mind, a certain fear of scarcity. Oh, they don't have that many. They have to limit it. It must be valuable. I need it. Because you're afraid of something being scarce. It's a scarcity, perceived. It creates a sense of scarcity, perceived scarcity. It's just like well, if you're stranded out in, after a plane crash on a deserted island or something, or you're lost in the jungle, well, no, you're lost in the desert, and there's not much food around. Whatever food you can find, you're going to grab, even if it's too much for you at one time. As human nature, we worry about scarcity, and if we really are in scarcity, if you don't have enough food, you will fight for whatever limited food resources are available, even if what you're taking is too much for what you really need. And that's why sometimes fights break out, when there's a food shortage or something is in short supply. Think of people in the US or Australia fighting over toilet paper in the store. Perceived scarcity. It's a cognitive bias because our survival depends on food in terms of our past history as a species, in our evolutionary past. We sometimes had to fight for food and water, for basic supplies, because we're afraid of scarcity. We'll get whatever we can, even if it's too much, because it's better to have too much than not have enough and then go hungry or thirsty and maybe die or get sick. Unfortunately, the human mind over-applies this, and it works for advertising ice cream or batteries or cake or anything. Perceived scarcity. They're tricking your brain. You're getting your brain to malfunction. This is one of these biases. It's a bias that's built into our brains, into our way of thinking. It was originally for survival purposes, but in our modern world, it doesn't quite work as well, and it can be tricked by advertisers in this way. Second example. Okay, you buy a sweater, maybe for 30,001 or $30, say at the Korean store E-Mart, and the next day you're at Home Plus, the Home Plus store, and it's on sale for 22. And how do you feel? You feel angry at yourself, and you feel angry at the store where you bought it yesterday, where you actually bought it. You feel angry. And you also feel kind of regretful and sad too, perhaps. Why? Is it rational to think like this? No. It's not rational, but you think, oh, I should have known, I should have waited. And so maybe you're not going to go back to E-Mart. You're going to just go to Home Plus next time, just in case there's something else on sale that I might want or need. I'm going to go to Home Plus. They're playing with your mind. They're tricking you. How does this work? This is something called hindsight bias, and it works in two ways. Here it works in a negative way, so you feel bad about yourself. It can work in a sort of a positive, not good, but in a positive way, in a way that makes you feel good about yourself. So for example, you take a test and a certain question is on the test and you feel good because you answered it. And you're like, yeah, I knew that was going to be on the test. I knew that. Or I knew that was going to happen. So after something happens, you reassure yourself. You make yourself feel good by thinking, oh, I knew that was going to happen. You didn't actually know. But you want to make yourself feel good by saying, oh, I knew that was going to happen. Oh, I saw, my two friends, they were dating, but they broke up. No surprise. I knew it was going to happen. Well, maybe you didn't actually know. But when you look back, you think that you did know it was going to happen, but the truth is you didn't actually know back then at the time when they were dating, or you break up and you're like, yeah, I knew that was going to happen. I knew it wouldn't work out. But you didn't. You were really invested in the relationship. You're trying really hard to make everything work. You didn't see the breakup coming, but after the breakup comes, you make yourself feel better. You try to comfort yourself by saying, oh, I knew that was going to happen. I knew she was going to break up with me. You didn't know, but you comfort yourself with the thought, yeah, in the back of my mind, I knew it was going to happen. You're doing that to protect your sense of face or your sense of self-esteem, so you don't feel stupid. Yeah, I should have, well, I knew it was going to happen. I tried anyway. In this case, though, it kind of backfires. So the advertisers make it backfire. You think, I should have known. I should have known that might be on sale also at Home Plus at the second store. I should have known, or I should have waited. But you couldn't. There was no rational way you could have known. And so you kind of beat yourself up. So this hindsight bias here backfires. And what it does is it makes you more likely to go to Home Plus, to the second store, again, because maybe you want some other, maybe something else will be on sale at Home Plus. And you're kind of angry at eMart because it wasn't on sale so cheaply at eMart at the first place, and you paid $30 when you could have paid $22. It's triggering also a sense of regret. Now, regret is usually actually a healthy emotion. You don't think of it as healthy, but it's, in terms of its function, its psychological function, regret is kind of a healthy emotion because it makes us think about our mistakes, and it makes us learn from our mistakes. So it serves a healthy function of making us learn from our mistakes. And then you learn and you get over it and you feel okay later. And this is an unhealthy kind of regret because it's irrational. There's no way you could have known. You feel regretful in a way that's not healthy. And by the way, regretful is usually healthy. If you get trapped in regret for the past, that's unhealthy regret. Healthy regret is regret where you learn from the past and you move on, a better person. Unhealthy regret, if you're really, really stuck in the past, you're really hurting, it's been months or years and it still makes you angry or depressed, talk to somebody because it's unhealthy regret, where you're not learning, you're not moving on, you're not growing. Let's talk to somebody if you've got that unhealthy regret and if it's a serious problem. Next, you do well in a course. To what do you attribute your success? Yourself. I studied really hard and I'm smart. I'm good. I did well because I'm good. You do that to protect your self-esteem, to build up your self-esteem, and it's natural. But you do bad in the course, you get a bad grade. Oh, it's the professor's fault. The professor didn't teach well. The lecturers weren't clear. The exam question wasn't clear. It's the professor's fault. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But do you see the pattern? If it's something good, you take credit. If it's something bad, you try not to take credit, but you try to blame someone else. And it's natural to blame, to do this. It's a cognitive bias to protect, our self-esteem. But be aware that this is a bias. If you do poorly in the class, it's maybe because the professor taught well anyway, but maybe you didn't pay attention, or it just wasn't your kind of thing. It wasn't something you were interested in. And if you're not interested in, that's okay. It just means that you're not going to study very well or pay attention very well because you're not interested. It could be a combination of, your fault and the professor's fault. But when you do well, it could be a combination of your cleverness or your hard work and the professor teaching well. So things are more complicated. But nonetheless, our behavior is irrational here in order to protect self-esteem. So that's called attribution bias. So we've seen perceived scarcity, we've seen hindsight bias, and maybe regret. We've got attribution bias, It's natural. Now, a more complex one. Why do people believe in astrology and horoscopes? So a horoscope is kind of like the daily reading in the newspaper for today or this week. This is your advice based on your astrology sign. Let's do an example. Okay, when were you born? Tell me, just shout it out. When were you born? Okay, so for you, let me read the horoscope for you based on your birth date, your astrology sign. Today is a good day to think about past mistakes and learn from them. It is also a good day to meet a new friend, and you will make a new friend today. However, be careful and do not let anyone take advantage of you. Sound like good advice? Is this an accurate horoscope? Does it describe you pretty well? Especially if it says something about your personality, if it says you are a kind-hearted person. Okay, does it describe you? Probably. In some way, you can think, oh yeah, I'm a kind person, I'm a kind-hearted person. And then you believe in the rest of this. Well, but notice the statements I said is not about you. It could apply to anybody. And that's how astrology and horoscopes work. They're a bunch of general statements. Now you could go to a professional astrologer and get a more detailed reading about your personality based on your birth sign and your advice for the coming week or month. And it might seem detailed, but it's still a bunch of fairly general statements. You're kind-hearted. Today's a good day to make a new friend, but don't let people take advantage of you. Today's a good day to think about past mistakes and learn from them. Those are generally true for about anybody. They are generally positive statements, rarely anything very negative, and they're fairly general that they could apply to anybody. And that's one way that they work. And you read it and think, oh yeah, that applies to me. It's never anything really negative or anything very specific. Your girlfriend is going to break up with you because you're a bad boyfriend, because you're lazy and you don't treat her well. Your dog is going to run away from you, or your pet cat, has cancer. No, it's never anything really negative or anything very specific. It's all designed to make you feel good. Now, it's not necessarily intentional on the part of the astrologers, but that's the kind of framework that they've fallen into, the way of thinking that they've fallen into. People fall for this easily because these are very general statements. A term for these kinds of statements are Barnum Statements or pt Barnum Statements. They are named for a famous circus owner, one of the founders of kind of the American circus in the 1800s. And at the time, some of the circus acts were kind of fake acts. Some guy who has somebody who's kind of a male-female mixture, or a guy with 6 fingers, or some kind of weird, freaky-looking people. Sometimes they weren't real; they were kind of artificial. The 2-headed cat, or something weird like that, or the fake mermaid. They really did that. A fake mermaid. It was all fake. Things like that. And Barnum was a clever salesperson because he can make general statements. Oh, you look like a very intelligent person, or here's a mermaid. It's a real mermaid we caught in the Atlantic Ocean. He was really good at making false general statements, including statements to compliment the customer, or other kinds of general statements that were false. So these kinds of false statements that may seem to describe you, like a salesperson kind of flattering the customer, you must be a very intelligent person. Let me give you special admission to the special circus attraction. I don't let everybody see this. This is a mermaid we caught off the coast of Africa. And it's a real mermaid, just because you look really smart and look like a good customer. So these kinds of statements are sometimes called Barnum Statements, for the famous circus owner, and sometimes kind of a trickster. That's one reason people believe in this stuff. What are some other reasons? They have general statements and they make you feel good about yourself, you're a kind-hearted person. So you think about ways in which you're kind-hearted. It's a very general statement, and you think about the ways in which you're kind-hearted. You're not going to think about the ways you're bad and mean. And when something happens which seems to fit the horoscope, the prediction, oh, that confirms the prediction. But if something happens that doesn't fit with the horoscope, you kind of ignore it. So you think of ways in which things fit what you want to believe. You want to believe in astrology, and so you think of things, or you recognize things that fit with it, and you ignore or don't recall things that don't fit. You're looking for things that confirm it. It's a confirmation bias. And if it's especially something that you have invested your mental energy and your time and maybe months or years of your life, you want to believe it. So you look for things that confirm your belief. It's confirmation bias. And it could be anything. It could be a political party. It could be astrology. It could be tarot reading or palm reading or fortune telling. It could be a religion. I'm not saying religion is necessarily bad, but if you're religious, just make sure you're not religious because of confirmation bias. Make sure that if you're into some sort of religion or spirituality or philosophy of some kind, make sure you've thought it through and it's for the right reasons. And along with that goes selection bias. So selection bias means you pick out the things that you notice the things that fit, and you don't notice the things that don't fit, with the prediction. So confirmation bias, you're looking for things that confirm what you want to believe. In the selection bias, it's kind of similar. They overlap but go together. You pay attention to what fits and you ignore what doesn't fit. That's selection bias. Okay. Even smart people can fall for this stuff and also for some of the other stuff we're going to talk about. When I was in middle school, I fell for astrology at first. I got into astrology a lot until someone pointed out that it wasn't really right or healthy or good. And then I fell into another similar trap. It's called graphology or handwriting analysis. So it's kind of the claim that your handwriting indicates your personality, and there are all these kinds of things. These kinds of swirls or loops or slants indicate different things about your personality. And it's all actually fake. It's pseudoscience. But I was really into it until I realized the statements that it says about you, this is your personality, based on the style of your writing, I realized it's kind of like astrology, very general statements. Even if I did a detailed graphological analysis of my friend's writing, and it seems detailed, it's just a bunch of general statements. You're outgoing, you're kind of very analytical, those are all fairly general statements. Anybody can maybe be outgoing in a certain situation. That's not very insightful. Anybody can be kind in certain situations. So a general description is not very insightful. So I fell for astrology and then graphology when I was young, and a few others when I was young. Okay, we're going to move on to other aspects of information processing, how humans take in and handle information that can trick us. Okay, let's look at some other ways our minds can trick us. Page 41 in the course packet. When you look at clouds, what shapes do you see? Or what shapes do you see in these clouds? What kind of shapes do you see? Think about them. What kind of shapes do you see or images do you see in the toast here? What do you see in these horrible vegetables? Gosh, they look like they're in pain. Gosh. Think about these for a minute. Pause the video and think about these for a minute. Why do we see those images? We know clouds are not elephants or mice or bunnies. Why do we see those things in clouds? Well, you don't see usually other things like, you don't see, people don't say, oh, that looks like a cockroach, or that looks like Satan, or, oh, That looks like a dead mouse. No, you know, people don't say that. Why? Why do people see certain images like this in their toast? But you never hear of someone saying, oh, Satan appeared on my toast. And why do these vegetables evoke this kind of reaction in us? Why do we think these look like faces? Why? Think about it for a few minutes. Okay, why do we see shapes in clouds? Our brains look for patterns. Our brains are pattern matching machines. They're always looking for patterns. Why? It helps us to understand the world. It simplifies our understanding of the world. We can quickly find patterns to know what to do or how to interpret things. It's a time-saving device that our brains have evolved. It often works, but sometimes it misleads us. It's an effect called pareidolia. That's when we see patterns that are not really there. So we often see patterns and it works. You're trying to distinguish people from things that aren't people, you know, in a scene. But sometimes it misleads us and we see shapes that are not really there. There's visual pareidolia like this. Clouds look like bunnies and elephants. Toast looks like the face of Jesus or the face of St. Mary. And it's just pareidolia. It's a psychological effect, but some people thought there was something to it. And actually, as the notes in the book indicate, they've sold some of this stuff on eBay. Yes, if your toast happens to look like Jesus or some saint, you can sell it on eBay and make money. There are people willing to buy that. And as the book indicates, one of these was bought by a casino in Las Vegas, and they displayed in the casino. I guess people at the casino think it'll bring them good luck if they're gambling while praying to your Jesus toast on the wall that this casino has displayed on the wall. Okay, it's a nice trick. And of course, we see faces in inanimate objects like vegetables. God, they look like they're in pain. They don't want to be cut open. Those poor paprikas or bell peppers. Call them paprikas or bell peppers. Poor things. It's pareidolia. We see patterns that are not really there. It's natural. Now there's also auditory pareidolia. Have you heard of alleged backward masking in rock or pop songs? The claim is that there are hidden messages, and if you play the songs backwards, there are messages. There are secret messages. So when the song is sung forward normally, sounds innocent, normal, but when it's played backwards, it sounds like it's some kind of evil message. And a lot of people have claimed that there are secret messages. Famous rock song from the 70s called Stairway to Heaven, played backwards, supposedly has a lot of lyrics saying things like my sweet Satan and things like that. A song of praise to the devil worshipping. I'll share with you a video later that shows that. The famous song by Queen, Another One Bites the Dust. You probably have heard it. Another one bites the dust. Another one bites the dust. It's been claimed that when you play it backwards, it says, try marijuana, or I decided to try marijuana. And then somebody comes along and says, oh, I tried marijuana. And after I heard that song, it was that song that did it. It was a secret message in the song that caused me to try marijuana, something I wouldn't normally do. Really? What do you think? Pause and discuss. What do you think about this stuff? Is it possible? Okay, short answer, it's not possible. Is there any way for a singer to sing something forwards so that it means something else backwards? It's humanly impossible to do that. Whether in a recording studio or on stage or whatever, it's just not possible. Secondly, when you play this stuff backwards, it's gibberish, it's nonsense. It just happens to sound like something else. Why? It's pareidolia. Your brain is looking for patterns. It's trying to get words from what is a bunch of nonsense, blah, 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 backwards. It's nonsense, but your brain is trying to find patterns. So it finds words that are not there. And your brain just happens to, especially if you have some kind of a bias that rock music is evil, then you're going to find evil stuff in when you're playing songs backwards. How many people have that much time on their hands that they spend their time listening to songs backwards? So anyway, so you're going to find stuff you're looking for. References to drugs or sex or the devil or anything you think is bad that might be in the music. It's a reflection of maybe the person's own bias when they say, oh, I played it backwards and it was talking about drugs and marijuana and stuff. And of course, as a linguist, I can tell you there's a lot of abstract structure in language, and I know about how the brain processes language. It's just not possible. You would have to evolve separate, the human species would have had to evolve separate mechanisms in the brain to handle backwards language. And there's just no reason why we would have evolved that. It's not possible anyway because, okay, try to talk backwards. Try it. I challenge you, try it. And then try to understand a friend who is trying to talk backwards. It's bloody hard. It is very unnatural. And it doesn't work too well. The sound structure of any language is not symmetrical, so that you say something backwards, it's really hard to do, and it's really hard to understand. And then the grammar is not the same. You might think that words and sentences, it's all symmetrical, and there's actually a lot of abstract structure. Learn theoretical linguistics, and there's good evidence for this. The sound structure and the grammatical structure of language, it's not symmetrical. You can't just reverse it. You can see yourself in a mirror and see, oh, that's me. It's reversible. Language is not reversible. There's a lot of abstract structure in language. It's not reversible. You can't do it backwards. It's impossible. Trust me, or take linguistics classes and learn about linguistic structure, and you'll see it's not reversible. You can't reverse it in your brain. Next question. What are conspiracy theories? What are some examples you're familiar with? Why do they get started, and why do people believe in them? Okay. Now we're moving to conspiracy theories. Is there a connection between that and what we just talked about? I wonder. Pause the video and discuss. What are some conspiracy theories? What are they? What are some you have heard of? How do they work? Why do people believe in them? Why is that? Pause and discuss.